Last year, we saw how Primetime was a potential candidate for head coach openings at Texas Christian University and Colorado State. This year is no different for this legendary football coach because he's still in demand. No big surprise there considering what a great coach Sanders has proven himself to be. We know for sure that he's in talks with both Colorado and University of South Florida. Well, let's just get into it then. First off, we're hearing Coach Prime's looking at head coach openings. We heard this big news from Carl Reed at 24/7 Sports, where he mentioned how Deion Sanders, aka Coach Prime, and everyone's definite favorite this season, has been in some serious talks with power brokers at both Colorado and South Florida. Both of those teams have spots open for a head coach, and if there's one person everyone's hoping to get their hands on, it's Sanders. We'll talk about what's the catch in a little bit. If you didn't know, Auburn had an opening too, but as far as we know right now, they haven't made any contact with Sanders about filling that position. It's definitely the highlight of Coach Prime's career, considering how multiple teams are approaching him. The South Florida Bulls and Colorado Buffalo don't seem to be doing all that well, and seeing how Sanders has done such a great job with the Jackson State Tigers, you can imagine why the Bulls and Buffaloes are after him. Up next, Deion Sanders and his dream to make it at the Football Bowl subdivision level. Sanders has been with the Tigers for around 3 years, and he's already made an impact. The Jackson State football team did not lose one game this season, and that's a massive record for them. And it was all thanks to Coach Prime's dedicated supervision and guidance. He truly polished this team and made them shine. With such a record on his hands, it's pretty predictable that Sanders might want to make history at the Football Bowl subdivision, or FBS, level. In light of that, is it really any wonder that bigger things are headed Prime's way with how it's been? Recruiting teams like these need a coach like Sanders who knows just what to do to get them to their best. We all saw it with the Tigers, and everyone's hoping the 55-year-old could bring the same magic to their teams. Let's see why everyone's got their eyes on him specifically. If it wasn't clear already, then one of the main reasons Sanders is the hottest coach this season is how he led the Tigers to an undefeated record this season. And while we're celebrating that brilliant victory, the other teams are looking for ways to make it happen for themselves. Right now, Sanders is the answer for them. What's more, the 55-year-old has proven his worth by being an NFL veteran who played for the league for a total of 14 years. That goes to show that Prime's got plenty of experience, and if he's coaching you, he absolutely knows what he's doing. Additionally, back when Sanders used to play football himself, he won 2 Super Bowls and even went on to participate in the 1992 World Series. So you see, the Prime's a professional through and through. Another thing that's got everyone hoping to get Sanders on their side is the fact how he recruited Travis Hunter on signing day last year. To say it was a big surprise would pretty much be the understatement of the century. You all know how Hunter was the #1 overall recruit, and for Sanders to flip him from Florida State to Jackson State is a really huge deal. Hunter's not the only recruit Sanders ended up picking for Jackson State. The Prime managed to land top 100 recruit Kevin Coleman as well, and safe to say, this proves how the 55-year-old is pretty incredible at recruiting. That's another reason teams are trying to have him as a head coach. Now, for all the perks Colorado and South Florida hold for Sanders, it's no big secret that both Colorado and South Florida haven't delivered their best in quite some time now, and it explains why they're seeking the Prime's help in these times. Despite that, both of these teams offer Sanders certain benefits. Let's start with Colorado. The school's football team is part of the Pac-12 conference, and that means there are opportunities for Sanders here that he wouldn't get at Jackson State. Mainly speaking, if Sanders ends up in Colorado, he can finally pay his assistants properly, as well as build a proper infrastructure for coaching because of the resources available in Colorado. Now let's move on to South Florida. Compared to Colorado, USF doesn't have great financial resources, which might attract Sanders, but when you look at Sanders and his recruiting footprint, Florida's got quite a lot to offer. Simply put, the Prime can deliver a similar turnaround at Florida, just like he did at Jackson State. Moving on, how Sanders will have to put in a lot of work if he goes to either Colorado or South Florida. Even with all of the perks in mind, you've still got to consider how both the Bulls and Buffaloes are suffering right now. What that means is that Sanders will have to work really hard to return these teams to their days of former glory. Both Colorado and South Florida were 1-10 this season, and that just shows how much they need Sanders to swoop in and save them. Of course, both teams will require necessary rebuilds if Sanders chooses to go to either of them, but we know he's pretty much capable of turning things around for both. Let's look at this one major obstacle in Sanders' way. Okay, so things aren't going to be all that easy for Sanders. It's true that the Prime has been on top of the list for multiple FBS openings, but there might be something that could potentially hinder him from being hired. According to reporter Brett McMurphy, the big obstacle happens to be how how things went down at the Prime Prep Academy. It might all be in the past, but it doesn't mean they won't be thinking about it before hiring Sanders. The school was shut down in 2015 due to academic and financial issues. We won't go into details, but there were a lot of accusations about racism, fraud, and influence peddling. We're pretty sure the football teams are going to factor this in during Prime's evaluation, so let's see how it turns out. Following up, Jackson State's unblemished record this season. As we mentioned before, the Tigers have surprised all of us with an undefeated record this time, and it's definitely a first in Jackson State's history. Everyone's cheering for them, and they deserve it. It's a huge cause for celebration, and we hope they're going all out right now. The Tigers maintained an 11-0 record this season after defeating Alcorn State this Saturday, and it's pretty surprising, seeing that they didn't lose one game this season. They really made everyone at Jackson State proud. It's all thanks to Sanders and his dedication to improving his team. Congratulations to all of them. Let's look at this football team's past records before they made history this year. Why is it such a big deal the Tigers had an 11-0 record this season? Well, to begin with, this is their first ever unblemished record in the history of college football. What's more, they've never achieved this before, so as such, it's an incredible accomplishment that should be celebrated. Additionally, there's also the fact that in 2019, before Sanders became head coach for the team, they had a record of 4-8. Then the Prime joined, and we saw the Tigers improve a bit during the shortened 2020 season. They finished with 4-3 back then. Then we saw quite an improvement in 2021 with how they managed to have an 11-2 record along with the Southwestern Athletic title. Sadly, they couldn't make it at the Mideastern Athletic Championship, but that was okay because we all saw the team go through a steady improvement. Sanders truly worked his magic with the Tigers, and it shows. Now, in 2022, they've got a pretty neat record, and what's more, every failing football team is looking at Sanders with hope. It's only a matter of time before we know if the Prime will stay or if he'll pick another team to work his magic on. Up next, it's worth mentioning all the brilliant players of this team. It's only fair to talk a little bit about all the young football stars who are part of this team. First up, we've got none other than Sanders' son, Shedeur Sanders. He's the star quarterback who threw 32 touchdown passes. Dang, that is impressive. Then we've got running back Savion Wilkerson, who managed to go beyond 1,000 rushing yards. Now that's a great record for sure. And finally, we've got Aubrey Miller Jr. His defense is nothing short of brilliant, and he's delivered consistent performances throughout the season. One thing is for sure, their coach must be incredibly proud of them. Last but not least, the Tigers gearing up for the SWAC Championship. After the undefeated 11-0, the Tigers definitely have plenty to look forward to. For now, it's the Southwestern Athletic Championship. The match will be on December 3rd, but right now we've got no idea who the Tigers will be up against. It could be either the Southern Jaguars or the Prairie View Panthers. But according to Coach Sanders, it doesn't matter who the Tigers have to face and that no one can beat us if we're on our game. That's a wrap for this video. In your opinion, will Sanders head to Colorado or South Florida? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.